Hey friends, happy Monday. Today is September 15th, and we are mid eclipse season. We are in the middle of shake up energy. We have seen this play out on a collective level over the past week. Some of us have seen it play out on an individual level, but we're feeling the shakeups in real time. Sometimes we don't feel this from eclipses for up to 6 months, but I think we're feeling it now. These eclipses are happening in Virgo. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, the sign of communication, and a lot of what's going on has to do with communication. So, in all transparency, I have recorded this or tried to record this episode 5 times already today. This feels like such a huge task to speak specifically to what's going on this week in a way that feels both authentic and honors that we don't have all the information right now. And that is really my takeaway from all of these tries is in this eclipse season, in these shakeups, in this moment where we have a ton of information coming into us. We have visuals, we have um, opinions, we have actions, we have responses, we have reactions. There is so much information coming at us at this moment. And yet we have so little information, and we need to be going forward, I think, very carefully over these coming weeks, especially when we think about the workplace. I'm going to really try to focus this in a bit on that since that is, this podcast is practical spirituality for work and life. How do our spiritual practices play out in the workplace? So for many of us who are looking around going, what is happening? What is happening is we have really huge events, flashpoint events, things that we are going to look back on months, even years from now and go, that was a turning point happening this past week. And we are likely to have more of those coming up in the coming weeks. And as those things come up, we want instant responses. We want instant reactions, instant opinions, instant takes, instant analysis. And I think that those of us who are paying attention to the energy around us are going to do well by slowing down, by saying we don't have all the information. And so, although we can speak to our own experiences and we can speak to the information available to us at the moment, we don't have it all. We don't understand different people's motives for different things happening around us. We just don't have all the information. So as we go into work this week, I think it's really important that we go in knowing we don't have all the information, being willing to say we don't have all the information, being willing to remind others that we don't have all the information. I think that, we're seeing people losing their jobs because they are posting their reactions very publicly to public events, and they're losing their jobs because of it. Right? That is kind of an extreme example of what happens when we respond without all the information, but it is a very real and very consequential response to that. So going into these next few weeks, I think that slowing down, being curious, and being honest are going to help us a lot. When I say slowing down, I mean recognizing again, not all the information is available to us. Brene Brown, in one of her books, I don't remember which one it was, but in one of her books, she tells this story of how she and her husband are swimming across a lake together or a pond together. And they're about halfway through. And I am paraphrasing this after having read it several years ago. So please forgive me if I don't get it all right. But they're about partway through, and her husband kind of takes off to the other side. And she is, still swimming at her own pace. And she's starting to tell herself these stories of like, we were in a fight and he's mad at me. And so he's trying to prove that he's better than me. He's competing against me without telling me so that he can win. She had all these things that she thought were going on as reasons that her husband had sped ahead and gone to the other shore. And when she got there, he's out of breath. He's trying to catch his breath. He's visibly upset. And she goes, "What is going on?" And he says, "I panicked out there. I thought I was going to drown. And so I was trying to get over to the other shore as fast as I could." And she goes, "Oh my gosh, the story I told myself is you were mad at me. And that's why you went to the other shore. And he's like, I was trying to save my own life. I am so sorry. And again, this is a paraphrase. I may not have gotten that 100% right, but it's a really good reminder of this idea that when something happens, we tell ourselves a story about why it's happening. And in moments like this, we need to pause and be honest about the stories that we're telling ourselves and whether they are rooted in our own understanding and our own experience, or if we're also getting the facts coming in, right? After I can point to multiple things that have happened over this past week where people have said, okay, this event happened because this person or this community forced it to happen. And then we come to find out, oh, that may not have been the case at all. That's an example of publicly we tell stories about things happening, even though we don't have all the information available to us. So, as we go through these weeks, whether it's in response to communal events or in response to personal events, I want us to slow down and recognize the story that we're telling ourselves. This is part of both slowing down and being honest. What is the story I am telling myself in this situation? Sometimes at work, this can play out where, we're used to getting a really quick response from somebody, and then we have a conversation that maybe doesn't feel as easy as it usually does or is left with a little bit of tension. And then we reach back out to that person and they're slower to respond than they normally are. We go, oh, they are ignoring me. They are trying not to talk to me. They're mad at me because of that conversation. They were left uncomfortable, and so that's why they are slow to respond. The story we tell ourselves is that person is doing whatever it is, being slow to respond, ignoring me, etc., because of my understanding of it. So slow down. Understand when you have all the information and when you don't. Understand what information is actually available and what information is still outstanding. So that is part of slowing down. Also, slow down on your responses. Before you react publicly, whether that's on your own channels or somebody else's, slow down and think, do I really want this in the public space? Because once it's in the public space, you can't take it back. Once it's in the public space, it is open for interpretation by all. Slow down. If you're going to react, only do so with the information available to you. The next is to be curious. What else might there be to explain this? What else might be going on? Those are questions you can ask. Anytime that I have two employees come to me and one of them says, I experienced it this way. This is what happened. This is my understanding. This is why I'm upset. And the other one will come and say, this is what happened. This is my understanding. This is why I'm upset. And often they do not have they don't have all the information. Employee one does not know how employee two viewed this or experienced it, and vice versa. And so oftentimes one of the things I will do when it's safe to do so is I will bring them in and I'll say, hey, I want you two to hear each other. I want you to hear each other's perspective of this and how each may have been impacted. And that's not to say that one wasn't harmed by the other or anything like that, but just there is an element of needing to understand. And often what comes away from that is a deep level understanding of, okay, there was more to the story than I knew, that we're not always comfortable or even safe getting curious about. Right? I'm coming at this from the perspective of a straight, white, cisgender female woman. I am not going to experience or be impacted by things in the way that somebody else might be. And so I may not even always be aware of the impact that I'm having. And when I'm able to hear someone else's perspective, then I can go, oh, I had no idea that my words would have that impact, yet they did, and that caused harm. That's curiosity that allows for that. It is not always safe for someone else to come to me and say, hey, I need to be able to share my experience with you. They may not feel safe doing so. People in our lives may not feel that way. We might be that person going, I need to, I wish that I could share this experience. I wish that they knew the impact that it had, but it's not safe to do so. So I want to, give that context of like, do this safely. When we remain curious, when we allow for the fact that someone else may have experienced something very differently from the way we experienced it, we then begin to allow some of the color into the conversation and the narrative, right? This very binary right versus wrong, agree versus disagree way that we kind of live in our society right now does not leave room for a lot of complexity or nuance or even um, leaving room to agree to disagree. And again, not saying that we need to do that all the time, but our society leaves very, very, very little room for that. Be curious when someone is talking, be curious about what may be behind that, what experiences they may have that have led them into that, but also keep yourself safe. If someone is having a conversation that you're not comfortable with, it is okay to say, "Hey, I'm really not comfortable with this conversation." There's ways you can do that that are not that's not a judgment call on the person. That's you. I don't want to have this conversation right now. You can even say, "Hey, I've got, I have a deadline. I need to get to it. I'm really sorry. Thanks for chatting. I need to go." When you're in the workplace, that's a little more acceptable than outside of it. But there's ways that you can end conversations you don't want to have without making yourself even more vulnerable. Pointing to your work is a really good way to do that. One of the other ways we can remain curious is by avoiding judgment, again, when we don't have all the information. And when someone is in a conversation with you where they are acting from a space of as if they had all the information, it's okay to point that out. Hey, we don't have all the information here. Maybe let's hold off on this until we do. And then being honest. This is something that's really important that we remain in integrity with ourselves, that we remain in integrity with our own experiences of things, and that where it's safe to do so, we be honest about that. And again, that's going to look different for me than it might for other people. But being honest is something that it doesn't have to be honest about our full view or take on something, our full experience on something. It could be being honest about, I don't want to have this conversation. It can be being honest about, hey, for me, this feels like a disagreement that could lead to bigger issues. And I don't know that this is the space for that. Um, Being honest about your own response to things that how you write the story that you tell yourself. Be honest about that story. Be honest about the fact that it is a story that you are telling yourself with the information available to you. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's something that we all do, but we have to be honest about this. So going through this week, and I am saying this in our very specific context, and I hope that it will be helpful to you all because my hope is that as we go through this week, knowing that we don't yet have all the information available to us and that we may not ever have all the information, we are given a very, very selected, highly curated amount of information by most news outlets, media outlets, information outlets. What we get is highly curated. When we see something for ourselves, when we experience it for ourselves, that is a different story. But knowing that we don't have all the information, knowing that we are in the middle of eclipse season in Virgo, that there is just the energy around us is so very volatile that what we see and know today could be quite different from what we see and know tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now, or 6 months from now. I think that we really need to do ourselves, our coworkers, our community members a favor and take a step back from continuing the spread of half information and bringing things back to, can we talk about just our own lives if we need to? Can we put some boundaries around what y'all talk about if you want to? It's okay to do that. I honestly don't know if this is going to feel helpful for y'all or not this week. And having committed to putting out a weekly podcast that deals with practical spirituality for work and life, knowing that astrology is my passion, it is something I love, it is something that I think many of you are also very passionate about. I hope that this is helpful. Again, this is coming from, we talk about our rising signs. This is such a good example of my Libra rising at work right now, that in a situation where I don't know what to do, my immediate response is to bridge the gap. Where can I build a bridge? Other people, it is going to be a very, very different response. But for those of you who are looking for something that might feel a little more bridging than continuing the divide, I hope this is helpful. Be gentle with yourselves this week, friends. There's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of information, and it's not just words, right? We're talking about videos, we're talking about opinions, we're talking about analyses of what's happening. So many things are going on all at once and moving so quickly, and it's happening in a very, very, very unstable energy. So be mindful of that. There's nothing wrong with observing this week. There's nothing wrong with going, I need to see how more of this is going to play out. I need to see what else is going to come out. I need to see what other information is going to become available before I decide how or if I want to respond or even process some of this. And it's okay to go, not for me. What's going on this week is not for me. That's part of being honest. I'm sending you so much love this week, friends. I want us to be both honest about harm being done and open to others and their experiences while while acknowledging ourselves, our needs, our interpretation of things. It requires a lot of nuance. It is very complex. And taking our time, there's nothing wrong with that, especially this week. There is nothing wrong with that. So much love to you, and happy Monday again.